Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We are very excited and proud to introduce Mr. Paul Levy as our broadcast presenter this morning. We all know Mr. Levy. He was our 40th president of the PGA of America. He's also currently serving as the honorary national president. And he was the CEO. He's currently the CEO of PKL Golf Management and Club Services. He was the club operations and development president for the Sunrise Company out here in the desert for more than 18 years. They had properties in California, Texas, Nevada, and Colorado at their peak, during which time he was also the CEO and general manager at the Toscana Country Club here in Indian Wells. He's been a member since 1986 and has served on numerous Border Control, National Committee, South Texas Golf Professional of the Year Award in 2000. He was the president of the Southern Texas PGA section from 1998 to 2000. He's won the Strasbaugh Award, the Merchandiser of the Year Award on the national level and the section level for Southern Texas numerous times. We're very excited, very proud to have him on the broadcast this morning. Mr. Levy, welcome to the Catalyst webinar series. Thank you very much for being here today. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Thank you, John. I'm calling from my home, 7,500 feet up in beautiful Pine Top, Arizona. Great to be here and get to talk with everyone. You know, this morning when John reached out to me and Tom had it and asked about a subject, and I'd asked about what some of the other people spoke about, one of my passions for the golf industry and one of the things that I hope I left a mark on in my time in office was the role of the PGA professional in executive management. And we've really gone to the term executive management as opposed to just saying the general manager, because it represents such a broader scale and it's really an elevated position. You know, the general manager position today, the CMAA did a great job the last 10 or 15 years transitioning their general managers into the role of a chief operating officer, or even sometimes the CEO. That was what my title was with our clubs over the years, and we would call our general managers CEOs because we wanted the members at the club or the patrons of a facility to know that the buck stopped with that person. They were totally responsible for the entire operation. And I think from a standpoint of the industry's starving for people who can run facilities, whether it's a public or private or whatever it may be. But let's not also forget that executive management can mean you're the president of Topgolf, you're the senior vice president of sales of Titleist. You could be doing lots of things. So the executive management career track, one of the things that I was very happy to accomplish during my 2 years in office was the creation of the 3 career tracks. And, you know, for many years, we've had a general manager program, but we have greatly enhanced the education recently and are just about to launch the new education for executive management. And we do say executive management. We knew that we needed to be more competitive. We needed to add curriculum, you know, for example, things like club governance, expanded financial capabilities. So one thing the PGA did about a year ago, we brought in subject matter experts from across the country, not necessarily just PGA golf pros who have been general managers. People like Kirk Keebler of KKW, Copland, Keebler, and Wallace, the largest search firm for club managers in the country. They do about 50 to 75 searches a year for general managers, and I'd say the average compensation for their positions is probably in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. They might have positions as low as 175 or 200, and they've posted and done searches for positions that have been as high as 700,000 or 800,000 or up. So the term executive management, hopefully that gives you an idea. What type of jobs are out there? First thing I'd like to say is, I don't believe every golf professional should be the general manager. I think that the general manager, chief executive officer, or COO role isn't for everyone, nor would we want everyone to be in that position. But we do feel that and my personal belief, there's the biggest opportunity for upward mobility for our PGA professionals in that role, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. What type of facilities do we have? We have general manager at a daily fee or resort golf course. A lot of times that person, the facility wants you to be the director of golf, GM, and for that reason, it's usually economic. They're looking to have you fill two roles, so to speak, especially in a daily fee operation where it's not as expansive and you don't have as many departments. And those are some great positions to get your first GM job if you're interested. For myself, my first GM job was 1988, and it was a public golf course in Houston, Texas, and it was exactly that. I think my facility did about $2 million in revenue. I was the general manager, director of golf, and I liked being the general manager, director of golf because I wanted the customers at this golf course, I wanted the industry to know I came from the golf side. I was still also the lead teacher. I did the buying in my golf shop, but I was also the general manager, hired the superintendent, oversaw food and beverage and facility maintenance. Of course, some of the higher paying jobs are at the private level, whether that be working directly for a member-owned club, working for a course management company, and those positions start to become a little bit more evolved. Because, for example, in the clubs that I managed for 25 years, we had spas, we had fitness, tennis, we had a lot of different departments that you don't see at a daily fee golf course. Things that add to the value of the club for the member. And I think in today's world, the fitness, the sports experience has become huge. In fact, over the years, we would do focus groups, and many of the members in the last 7 or 8 years said the sports club experience, the hiking, the biking, the yoga classes, the fitness classes, the spa experience, world-class spa experience. Some of our clubs would do as much as $600,000 or $700,000 in a 6-month period in spa. That became a huge decision maker for people to want to live there and buy a membership at those clubs. Management company opportunities. You know, one thing I'll share. I was at the Troon office on Tuesday. I had a contract with Troon for a year and did some consulting work for them. And a lot of people look down on management companies. And I look at a gentleman like Dana Garmany, who just went in the Hall of Fame for the Southwest PGA and got their Ping Answer Award. I was at their annual meeting, of which now I'm a Southwest PGA member. What Dana did is he learned to scale. If you go from being a golf professional to the general manager or COO of New Orleans Country Club or Houston Country Club, no one would think of you as being a management company. But we in the golf industry, especially the PGA members, sometimes have a negative opinion of management companies. And what someone like Dana Garmany did, he learned to scale. He learned to take what he was doing at one club, and you'd never think of someone at one club being a management company. But you're kind of like that. You are a management company of one club, and he learned how to scale that to a level that was greater, 5, 10, 20, 50. Now Troon, of course, has recently acquired OB Sports. They've acquired a couple other entities. They're the largest company in the world of its kind and the largest employer of PGA professionals. And over 60% of their professionals are PGA members. Compensation-wise, no, they're not going to pay what maybe a private member equity club pays, but they pay much higher than the average compensation for PGA professionals. And it's a great opportunity to work in an organization and learn a system. The other great thing about a company like Troon is the opportunities to move up in the multiple course management and eventually an executive of the company. Pardon me, I've got a little frog in the throat. This past weekend, we had our member guest at Pine Top. I'm actually a dues-paying member of a place called Pine Top Country Club in Pine Top, Arizona. John Easterbrook, our chief membership officer, his grandfather was the first golf pro here in the 60s when the course opened. And I've been coming up here for 2 or 3 years with John and loved it. And we've wanted to own a mountain home. And this will be our summer retirement mountain home. So we had our member guest this week. And during the member guest, I played with Jim Richardson, our vice president. We were both laughing how we're 58 and 52 years old and never played in a member guest as a member. So it was a cool experience. But the reason I'm sharing that is we had many executives from Troon all of which are PGA members. Almost their entire senior executive level, not totally entirely, but many of their co-chief operating officers, some of their sales executives are PGA professionals. So you look at Troon, you look at other companies, there's great opportunities for people who want to get into that role. Industry executive management, the top golf role, I look at Golf Life Navigators, Jason Becker. I'm a real fan of what Jason's doing. He's providing a service to people who don't know what club to buy a membership at. So maybe they've lived all their life in Chicago and they moved to Palm Springs, they moved to Palm Beach Gardens. They have a program where you fill out a survey and they assist you in matching your likes and wants to the clubs in the area to help figure out what club to be a member of. Jason's been very successful, has brought in finance partners, has an executive exclusive deal with the Golf Channel. And here's an example where a PGA golf professional found a niche and created a product and owns his own company, and it's a multi-million-dollar company. You know, I look at Top Golf and Golf Tech as out-of-the-box opportunities. For those who maybe say, gee, Golf Tech, I wouldn't work for them. Well, they do 150 million golf lessons a year now. They're the second largest employer of PGA professionals and a great place for a young professional to learn about teaching. A lot of their executives, their founder of the company was Clayton Cole, the director of golf at Cherry Hills Country Club, a great golf professional, and Joe Ossel, who is a young man who I don't think Joe's barely in his 40s, and Joe's the CEO of the company, has done very well. And many of his senior executive management are PGA professionals. Joe is a graduate of one of the PGM universities. So there's a lot of other different opportunities out there. So that all encompasses executive management. One of my favorites is being an owner-operator. I look at Kathy Harbin, who for years was in the golf industry, World Golf Village, worked for Club Corp, and now owns her own golf course in Paris, Texas, and actually has picked up the management contract of a second course. People are always looking for professionals that can do executive management. Being responsible for the customer service experience, the bottom line, the employees, is something not everyone can find a good person to do. Why do I like executive management? Because it helps control your own destiny. It's the highest paid job. And remember, you don't have to give up being the golf professional. I look at my friend Ed Ibarguen at Duke University, where he's the director of golf, general manager, and a top 100 teacher. Paul Marchand in Houston, for many years at Shadowhawk, was the general manager and a top 100 teacher. So it's a choice to give up the golf side. I still love to play golf. I probably still play golf 50, 60 rounds a year. You might decide to not play golf, but it's really about choice. And I think a lot of people don't want to get into general management because they feel they're giving up their identity as a golf professional. That doesn't have to happen. As I shared, KKW, they cannot find enough qualified candidates. We've really developed a strong relationship with the search firms in the last 2 or 3 years. One of the focuses during my presidency in employment, we took the employment department during my time in office from 7 to 27 employees. Employment to me is the number one most important thing our association can help our professionals with. And we've built these relationships because they didn't realize the amount of professionals who'd be interested in being general managers. I look at Todd Kiefer, our own Todd Kiefer, section president before Tony in the Southern Cal PGA. He was hired through KKW to be the COO general manager at Wilshire. In the 6 years in my office, ending in November, we went from 500 to 1,500 general managers. One of my favorite sayings is the more general managers, the more PGA professionals in executive management, all boats rise. No one better understands the role of the director of golf, the head pro, the assistant pro, the director of instruction. No one better understands what those people are needing and going through in the executive management role than a PGA professional. Let's talk a little bit about what skills are needed. Well, to be in executive management, to be a general manager, I'm going to list just some of the things that you need to know. Food and beverage, and that's one that everyone tends to get scared of. Remember, food and beverage is no different than any other business. It's about having systems. It's about having controls. It's about hiring good people, and you don't have to know everything, but you need to have a general knowledge. You need to understand food costs. You need to understand labor costs. You need to understand how to control food costs in the kitchen. You need to understand how to staff your business accordingly. The PGA of America, our upgraded education, has expanded our food and beverage education. I also don't discourage people from being involved in the CMAA, and I'll talk about that a little later on. Agronomy. To me, that's one of the most critical aspects of what you need to know. You need to know enough about agronomy so that you're not dependent 100% on the superintendent or other people telling you what's going on. There's nothing more important. There's no asset more important at your facility than the golf course. Financial acumen. Of course, as you go to expanded private clubs or resorts, tennis, sports, fitness, the latest crazes in sports and fitness, spa, club governance, one area that we didn't have a whole lot of educational information on club governance, and we're really expanding that. How do you work with the committees? How do you convince the board to reduce the number of committees at a private equity club? What role should the committees play? How do you recruit leadership? How do you interact? How do you do long-range fiscal planning? How do you communicate to the president of your club or the management company? Or if you're at a public course, the city manager. How do you work within that framework and understand how to navigate sometimes what can be a minefield? Facility management, engineering, taking care of the facility plan, strategic planning. It's one of the areas that I find not just do we see executives not knowing how to do strategic planning, but clubs that don't do strategic planning. And strategic planning needs to be constant. It's always evolving. It's something that constantly changes. Membership, tournament, round sales, knowing marketing skills, knowing how to recruit, knowing what you would expect from your membership director, or at a public course, your sales director, how to maximize sales, understanding marketing and advertising techniques, human resources in the world we live today, a critical area, a very tricky area, understanding the current laws, understanding the current roles that you have to have. A lot of times over the years as general manager, human resources was myself and the executive assistant. Sometimes in larger companies, they're going to have a human resource department. I'm seeing more and more private clubs. Instead of having maybe the controller or the GM's assistant be also the HR person, to where they're hiring a dedicated HR person with the minefields today in human resources. Recruiting, one of the greatest talents I think you can have as a general manager or an executive. One of my roles with Sunrise for the over 18, 19 years is I had to recruit general managers. I came to work for Sunrise, and all of our general managers none of them were PGA professionals, and over the years converted every position to a PGA professional. How did I recruit those people? Get them to stay with the company longer. Get to where they were there much longer than the average tenure. The average tenure of a GM today, depending who you speak to, could be anywhere in the 4 to 7 year range. Not that much shorter than a PGA golf professional, head professional, or general manager. Sometimes that moving on is because of upward mobility. And I think one of the most important things is developing talent. You know, when I started interviewing people, my first GM job, I was 27 years old. I'd say my number one question is, what can you do for me? And what I really learned to ask is, what can I do for you? How do you help people get what they want, get to where they want? The most important thing, though, the number one talent that I look for and that I think everyone looks for isn't that you know food and beverage, isn't that you understand club governance, isn't that you can read a financial statement upside down. It's that you're a leader. Leadership is the number one skill needed to be an executive manager, general manager, chief operating officer. Don't be intimidated by what you don't know. PGA professionals exemplify some of the best leadership skills you'll see in corporate America. Capitalize on those skills. Use those skills. Communicate those skills. Communicate them to your in the interview process, and continue to communicate them throughout your employment tenure. Also, one of the things that I think is important, don't try to do all the social media on your own. In today's world, have a team member own an aggressive social media campaign, member communication plan, but you need to understand what it takes to do that. What should you do to prepare yourself? Let's say you're a young golf professional, and I think there's a natural career transition for young professionals. You might come out of college, you're 23 years old, you're an assistant. Maybe you get your first head pro job at 27, 28, 30. You move into a director of golf job. You're looking to continue to expand your income. One of the challenges is today, unless you're at a very high-end private club, there's not great upward mobility for the golf professional to expand their income. So you're starting to think about being a general manager. What can you do while you're a head professional or a director of golf? Well, I say learn all you can. As a young assistant professional or head professional, get involved. Don't have the attitude, that's not my job. Understand everything about a golf facility. When I was a young head professional, I nagged the heck out of our golf course superintendent. Asked what our salespeople were doing. Tried to understand and educate myself in all aspects. If you're at a facility now, ask your general manager, can you sit in on board meetings at times? Be in the meetings with the owner, with the city management. As my good friend Michael Lemus, who chaired the employment committee for me the last few years, Michael is the only person to be the president of the CMAA who was also a PGA professional. I myself have been a CMAA member for almost 20 years. Michael used to say, you need as many arrows in your quiver as you can. What does that mean? Continue to educate yourself. Get your PGA certification, your master professional status. CMAA membership, CCM. Many of the headhunters still today, because we, the PGA, were a little behind the curve and we're greatly moving in a great positive direction, but they listed you need to be a CCM for a general manager job. That's a certified, chief manager for the club industry. The CCM designation is almost a given in the CMAA world in clubs looking for general managers. So I encourage you, get as many certifications as you can, or arrows in your quiver. As a head professional and director of golf, you can join the CMAA and get your CCM. You can get your GM certification. We have added to the certification process, so now you do have to have an experience component as part of this PGA certification process. Apply and interview when ready. Though it may take a few shots for you to get that first job. Read all you can. Boardroom Magazine, Critin and Golf. Sign up for every industry e-news. Keep a file on things you like. Separate yourself with your passion, your knowledge, and your desire. Create great experiences for members of your club and get a reputation for being different. Dare to be different. Constantly ask your fellow department heads, the general manager, your members, how are you doing? What can you do to be better? You know, I've had over the years some friends say, gee, I'm so lucky. I don't have to have a review. I don't have to get a review. I say, that's not lucky. That's unfortunate. You want to be reviewed. You want to be documented, your successes. You want to have a system of documentation that quantifies your successes. That helps you get raises. That helps you add to your compensation, and that will help you at times in the interview. What do you need to do to prepare for the interview? Know who you're interviewing with. Have a portfolio of works, samples of your successes. Be able to describe your leadership style. To me, number one, most critical trait. Explain your approach to customer service. How do you ensure good communication around the club and facility and with the members or the patrons? Be able to show examples of that. Explain biggest keys you've had to your operational success. Share some of your greatest accomplishments. Detail some of your best programs. Show how you implemented them and show the results that were achieved. So while you're a head professional, keep a file of your successes. Keep track of what you've done. Don't wait to all of a sudden you get this interview and you don't know what to put in a dossier or what to put in a portfolio. During the interview, take point on your strengths and areas you're working on improving. You're always going to be asked, Some people will ask, I used to say, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I learned to ask over the years, what are your strengths and your areas for improvement? Let people know that you're a realist. Never say, I don't have any weaknesses. Never sit there when they ask you, what are your strengths, and you list them, and then they say, what are your weaknesses? You go, well, God, I really don't think I have any, or I can't think of any. Take point. Be on the front end of those kind of questions. Also, continue to tell them what a big role education plays in your life. Share that one thing that what can't be conveyed in your resume, that one intangible that you feel you have, and always finish with why you want the job and why you should be hired. I always tell people, never say, you need to hire me because I'm better than everyone else. That can come across a little arrogant. But I think what you do say is why you want the job and why you feel you're the right person for the job, why you should be hired. Close with statements like, I love delivering unparalleled standards of service. Share your track record of recruiting top talent. Explain to them, especially at the daily fee level or concerning membership at the private level or rounds at the resort level, that you get it, that you understand how to create sales and that you're a rainmaker. You know, early in my career, I had some PGA professionals said, hey, Levy, you're a salesperson. And they said that in a negative manner. If you look at the industry today, we have to sell. If we can't create revenue, we can't create value for our job, and you won't have your position. We live in a world today where people want to see results. What do you do when you get the job? Well, back to what I talked about in part one, have a long-term strategic plan. That means you have a plan, not the long-term strategic plan of the club. First 90 days, watch and evaluate staff. I think one of the worst things a new manager can do is come in, fire people the first 30 days, turn over the staff, because then all of a sudden everyone gets nervous. Evaluate the team. Have a strategic plan. Over time, put in the changes so that this club, this facility will have your trademark and you can increase the value of your position. Have a leadership philosophy that you practice and exhibit daily, one that your staff buys into, not because you tell it to them, because they see that you live it. Empower your staff. We used to have a rule where anybody at our club could spend up to X amount of dollars if there was a bad member experience. For example, a waiter spills a cup of coffee on someone's suit. Mr. Johnson, I'll get that dry cleaned for you. We've all been at facilities or clubs or businesses where, well, I don't know if I have the authority to do that. That means the staff's not empowered. Empower your staff. Create a mission statement. Create a culture where everyone knows and believes the mission statement. Have an operations manual. I can't tell you how many facilities and friends I've helped over the years that didn't have an operations manual, but it's not about living by the manual. It's not about being cookie cutter. It's about having something to fall back on that gives you a broad range of what you need to know, but it needs to be flexible. Insist on a capital replacement plan, and how is it going to be financed? How is it going to be funded? At the private club level, a lot of times it's funded from initiation fees, and the operations has to break even on the dues and the operating revenue. At a daily fee course, it might be a percentage of annual greens fee plan, or many different ways. But I cannot tell you how many facilities I've seen in my career. They don't have a capital replacement plan, and over time, it becomes the death of a facility. Know when to do capital leases or finance or buy equipment outright. Understand the differences. Whether you pay cash, whether you have a 4-year operating lease, which means at the end of 4 years, the equipment goes back. Whether you do a dollar buyout. I see a lot of superintendents, a lot of clubs insist that every 4 years they need new equipment. I've worked at facilities where I've had gang mowers and fairways. Early in my career, when I was running daily fee courses on short budgets, I had 10, 12-year-old fairway units. Understand how to get value out of the equipment. Understand how to do an equipment plan. Always have weekly staff meetings and always have an agenda and purpose. Don't make staff meetings boring. Make them fun. I think it's important to have a departmental reporting system. What I used to do, I did one-on-one. Depending on the department, it might be once a week. It might be once every other week. Some managers over the years I was so comfortable with, I might only met once a month with them. but it was a time to sit down and talk about what's going on. Talk about the action list, what needs to be done, what's going on with them. Take interest in their personal life, not just their work life, their family, their children. And then one thing that I suggest people do, if the company you're working for or the club doesn't ask for, be proactive. Write an executive summary every month with your financials for your owner or board. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them the positive things you're doing. Put it in writing, document it. Explain maybe the challenges that you're having. Explain maybe some of the things that need to be considered from a financial level. Show them that you're organized. Show them you're professional. Another thing that I think is very important is to be seen. I see many young managers spend way too much time in their office. Manage by walking around. It's an old saying, but it's one that's so true. I see young professionals that become general managers. They get locked into their office, and they end up spending 95% of their time in the office. I used to tell my people, never spend more than half your time in your office. I like to see them out of their office more than half the time. Walk through the kitchen every day. That's something that I did at my club. Every day I walked through the kitchen. Made sure that your people see you. Walk through the sports club. Go to the maintenance facility and be seen. Might not be at the maintenance facility every day, as it's usually not part of the compound where the clubhouse is, but don't forget about the maintenance facility. Know the names of the staff. Create a training program that's ever changing. Document a training program. Once a year, I used to love to do a training week. And what we would do is we would open up the week. It was kind of welcome back people for the season, have the new people introduce themselves. We used to do a lot of fun, a lot of games. It was a time we would do pictures of the staff to put in the newsletter or promote to the membership. But it's also a time that we would do an intensive week-long training program. And that program, I'd ask the department heads every year to update the program. I created a document that Boardroom Magazine wrote about one time called What Can We Do Better? WWCDB. And I instituted it at all the clubs over the years. The idea was for the GM to challenge the staff to not accept the status quo. What we could do better sometimes were marketing ideas. Sometimes it was buying a new outdoor barbecue, big fancy barbecue pit to provide grilled hot dogs and hamburgers to the members on the weekends or on certain days. It might be a new program. Sometimes it would be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars at high-end clubs on new facilities that were going to drive revenue. It wasn't just what can we do better to create new opportunities that we had to spend revenue to do. Sometimes it was cost saving. Sometimes it was ways to be more effective in spending money. At the end of the day, though, it accomplished two things. And we used to say, you need to tell us what is the value of doing this. It needs to affect the bottom line of the operation, but more importantly, it needs to enhance the customer or member experience. And that's one of the most important things that I think that people have to look at, because today is so competitive. You look at the hotel industry, you look at the Ritz-Carltons, the Four Seasons, the high-end hotel industry, Marriott's and Hilton's, even the 3 and 4 stars. It's so competitive. What are they doing? They're improving their food and beverage. They're updating their restaurants. They've all gone to the heaven beds 10 years ago. They're redoing the hotels every 7 or 8 years instead of every 10 or 12 years. They're giving you free breakfast. They give you bottled water when you come in. One of my pet peeves is you go to a Home Depot or you go to a Lowe's or somewhere and you can't find someone to help you. We live in a world where the expectation in America is off the chart. What people expect in a customer service, just any experience, drives whether or not they're going to continue to spend money at your club, your facility, your business. And I do think we've created an expectation, even sometimes to the point where it's a little unrealistic, but it doesn't matter. It's the customer or member's reality that you have to learn to deal with. And I think that's one of the hardest things for a lot of people in the management business. And again, we're all in the management business. I don't care if you're the head pro or assistant pro at a private club, a public course, the director of golf. I don't care if you're the director of instruction. We are all in that same business. How do we retain the customer? How do we retain the member? If you're at a private club, member attrition kills you. We sold 30 memberships this year, but we lost 35. Well, that happens for 10 years, you're in trouble. How do we create? How do we live in this, what many call the experience economy that we've created here in America? So we've talked a lot about what opportunities are out there. What do you need to do to think early on about getting a position? What do you need to do to retain the position? At the end of the day, we talked about once you get the position, what to do. Let's talk about some of the things to continue to retain, or as I like to say, keep on keeping on. Need to further that education. I cannot detail more importantly how it is in this industry. If you get the job and you stay where you're at, I see many professionals over my 35, 37 years that get a position and they don't continue to learn. They don't look at it from a what can we do better position. If you don't do that, how do you expect your staff to do that? And I think the number one reason people lose their positions is because they bring X to the table and they never add to X. Whether that's education, how do you give a better experience to the members? What do you do different every year? Hey, every day there's someone else that wants your job. That's the world we live in. I think in the PGA, we used to think at one time, we get our PGA membership. We have the letters PGA behind us. We get a job. We're going to have it the rest of our life. Those days are over. They're not over just in the golf industry. Look at corporate America. You know, you look back in the generation before me. I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1960. The generation before the baby boomers, people born in the 30s and early 40s. They went to work for IBM. They went to work for Exxon. They went to work for Whirlpool, KitchenAid. They spent 30, 40 years. They got a pension. They got a salary. They had a lot of pride, and they retired comfortably and left. Today, we don't see pensions. We have 401ks. Why? Because they're mobile. They go with you. What's the average tenure of anyone in the workforce today? I promise you, compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago, I have not seen any research outside of golf, but I would bet the average tenure is cut in half of what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. Now, sometimes learn to put that in perspective where it's a good thing. You're growing your career. You're going from assistant professional. You're an assistant in a private club. You want to have experience at a daily fee course, a resort. You move on. You get that first head professional job. You have a chance to go to a nicer club. Part of that's the natural or organic evolution of your career. But remember, you got to continue to educate, continue to enhance the member experience. Let's talk about your staff. I see many people never want to help their staff move on. I was very big on encouraging my staff to move on. I had a young man, Dave Ultimus, who worked for me in 1994 in Houston, Texas. He was maybe 23 years old. Today, Dave's the GM, been the section president in Southern Texas. Dave moved on, came back to work for me. I had another gentleman, Clay Miner, who was my GM at our clubs in Las Vegas. He went to work for the PGA at Coyote Springs, didn't like it, came back and was our general manager in Colorado. Help your staff get what they want. They will often come back to you. The great leaders help others achieve their dreams. Don't look at it that, wow, they're leaving. They don't want to work here. What am I going to do? The more you build followers, people who want to be around you, people that know you have their best interest at heart, people that know that you have a reputation for creating great golf professionals, great executives, that you have a reputation for taking interest in caring about their compensation, and helping them advance their career. Very important for your success. Communication. One of the biggest things that I think people fail on is just poor communication skills. And that needs to be done up and down the ladder, as I say in my outline. But what does that mean? You need to be able to communicate to the club president, the senior director from the management company, the city manager, the president of Titleist if you're an executive with Titleist. Or if you work for Top Golf, if Craig Kessler, the chief operating officer, comes to your facility. You need to be able to talk to your equals, your co-department heads. If you're the head pro, the food and beverage manager, the superintendent. You need to have an attitude that nothing is not your job. Everything is your job. Everyone at the facility has responsibility for every guest, member, patron, customer to have that great experience. How do you communicate to the staff that you manage? What tools do you use to communicate? Written communication, oral communication, or the one that I think many people forget about, nonverbal communication, body language, body movement, eye movement, posturing, shoulder shrugging, whatever it may be. When you're not talking, you're communicating every second of every day. Also, I think one thing that we worry about, we don't embrace input from others. Sometimes we think people are sticking their nose in our business. Why don't they just let us do what we're doing? Whether it's members or board members, your direct reports, encourage, embrace input. Don't take it as criticism. Take it as constructive input for the betterment of everyone. And before we end and open this up for some questions, last but not least, have fun. You know, when I first got elected to office, and many people who ran for office behind me, I remember whether it was Susie or Jim Richardson or some of the people who ran and unfortunately didn't get elected, they said, what's the most important thing? I said, if you're not going to have fun with this, don't do it. If you're not having fun, find something else to do. I used to tell my people every year, we wake up every day and we make a choice to go to work. We have a choice in life. There's nobody pushing buttons and forcing you to do something. Always have fun. And if you're not having fun, evaluate what you're doing and get into a position that you're going to have fun. Last but not least, remember, our customers, our members, they're not an interruption of our work. They are the very reason we have a job. And you need to have fun with them. They will know if you have fun. They will know if you're lighthearted. They will know if it's a passion or if it's drudgery and it's just work. So, with that said, that was my 45-minute version of what you need to think about, what are opportunities in this role. And again, it's not for everyone. We have 29,000 men and women PGA members in this country. I figure there's about 18,000 really in the workforce. We're up to, last I looked, somewhere short of 8,000 life members. So whether it's 18, 19,000 in the workforce. We have 1,500 general managers today, maybe 400 at private clubs, maybe 700 or 800 at daily fees, some resorts, some in other executive management roles outside of club operations. What if we had 5,000 PGA general managers at clubs? That doesn't mean I want everyone to be a general manager. We still have 24,000 other golf professionals in other roles. But would you, the head professional at XYZ Club, would you have a better upward chance in your career, expand your compensation, be able to sit in those meetings in the boardroom with a PGA member in that chair as opposed to someone who maybe sees you as a threat or keeping you in the position? To me, that's the biggest advantage of our professionals getting into executive management. So with that said, John, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Levy. Questions coming in from the field here. Patrick Casey inquiring, do you recommend that a club retain an attorney in addition to having an in-house human resource department?
I think that today there are a lot of services that you can pay a fee and have kind of an attorney on a retainer. There's several companies out there that you could do that. I think for a one standalone club, A lot of times you have a board of directors where you might have someone on the board that fills that role, but sometimes you might not want someone to do that. But there are a lot of companies that you can pay a fee and have someone that can be on retainer and help you in those situations.
Having been a member of 3 different sections, Southern California section, Southern Texas, and now the Southwest, what are some of the dynamics, the biggest similarities between the 3, and also the biggest differences between the 3?
Well, that's a great question. And don't forget, I will add, I grew up in Louisiana and played golf for LSU, and my first 6 months were in the Gulf State section. And then, of course, after that, I was a member of Southern Texas for almost 27 years. I think, first of all, Southern California has such a great advantage, not just from great leadership over the years, but the size of Southern California and the finances. You know, Southern California has about a $7 million budget. Southern Texas, when I first was there, our budget was very small. During my time in office as a section officer from 94 to 2000, we created the Golf Pass and we greatly expanded our revenue, and we had no junior golf program to speak of. Whereas today, Southern Texas, Southern California, Northern Texas are probably the top 3 junior golf sections in the country. What do I see in differences? Well, sometimes in governance, how they elect their board members. People in Southern Cal very much know that as much as I love being in Southern Cal, I was never a fan of how Southern Cal PGA elects their section officers. I like it to be a direct election by the membership. Southern Cal, it's the officers have kind of acted as a nominating committee, and the board ratifies the choice. I'm not saying everything has to be my way. I'm just saying that there are different ways to do things. In Southern Texas, we elected them by vote of the membership. I just sat in a vote last Monday by the Southwest section. It was by vote of the membership. Some sections have chapters where the chapters are very active. They have a tournament program. Some sections don't have chapters that are active. In Southern Texas, our chapters really became to where they just function to have tournament programs, and really now the chapters really just function in Southern Texas to be a seat on the board. Whereas in Southern Cal, the chapters are very active. The chapter leadership is how you get to the board level. And they're active not just from a standpoint, John, as you know, from tournaments, but from education and everything else. Very interesting, the Southwest PGA has what's known as, and again, I'm just learning, I've only been here 3 months, they have the, I forget what they call it, but it's basically the Tucson Southern chapter and the Las Vegas chapter, but the area in between the greater Phoenix, Scottsdale, and surrounding areas is not a chapter. It's part of the section, so I've never seen that. So you take the geographic map of the section, 2/3 of it, you're in a chapter and the section, 1/3, you're just in the section. Very unusual. I think what's important to sections, you know, that can vary depending on where you're at. Overall, I think when it's all said and done, we all take a lot of pride in our sections. We take a lot of pride in where we are. I know I will always be a proud member of the Southern Texas PGA and a proud member of the Southern Cal PGA, especially being in Southern Cal when I got elected to office. I encourage everyone on this call, especially you young professionals, get involved. One of the main reasons I got involved in PGA governance back in the late 80s, because I wanted to have a say-so in my future. Get involved in your section. Great question.
Can you talk about some of the duties that exist with the honorary president role?
Yeah, you know, it's ever changing. One of the things that I did in my first year as president, I authorized with the board's approval, a governance task force. And it was chaired by John Lindert at the time before he decided to run for office. And when John decided to run for office, I said, John, you really need to step down because it could put you in a bad spot and could be a conflict. And I asked Roger Warren to chair it. One of the things that we talked about is, you know, how do we make it better for officers? It's very difficult, the amount of travel. I was fortunate that I was in a role where I kind of could control my own destiny. And I traveled, you know, as president 250 days a year. I love going to the sections. I love going to the PGM university. But I look at Jim and his role as senior vice president for Troon. we were talking about it this weekend with Jim at my house. It's very challenging as time continues to go on for these golf professionals to run for office, retain a job, and travel as much as the PGA needs. The honorary president, you're still part of the executive committee at the championship. So you're part of the PGA Championship, the Ryder Cup, the KPMG, the Senior PGA. You're there the whole week, part of those festivities, representing the PGA of America. I'm still on the board of directors, but after me, I go off. The transition vote that the board voted in January was the honorary president. Eventually will go off the board. So I'll be the last PGA of America honorary president to serve as a board member. What are they trying to do? When Susie goes out, she will have served 6 years, and she'll move into the honorary president role, but she won't be on the board. It'll be her choice to attend certain events. I choose to attend because I have the time and I have the lifestyle where I work for myself, so I can do whatever I'd like to do. I'm very lucky that way. But trying to cut down some of the long-term commitment as people consider to run for office. Other things as honorary president, you're the PGA Cup captain. I actually did mine a year early because Derek Sprague, who was the officer before me, he at the time was at Liberty National, and they had the President's Cup. And the President's Cup was the week before the PGA Cup, so he asked me to do him a favor and switch. So Derek will be the PGA Cup captain this year. So you're the PGA Cup captain. The year you go out of honorary, you're the Junior Ryder Cup captain. And of course, once you move into a past president role, like a Tom Addis, a Pat Riley, a Mark Kazar, you're still involved in the PGA. You still attend the annual meetings. You still sit as honorary president on the DIOS at the annual meetings. And obviously, people who become an officer of the association, love the association, will stay involved over the years.
And that concludes all the questions that we have for you today, Paul. Mr. Levy, thank you very much for taking the time to present to the Southern California section. It was very enlightening. We always, as members, always curious and hungry and want to know how successful people in our industry got successful, because of course we all want to be successful as we work through the various stages of our careers. And you've obviously been a tremendous success in your career, and gaining insight and learning how you did that is vital to the rest of us out here that want to someday, have the same type of resume behind us. So really, really, really grateful that you've made the time to present this morning. For everybody that's on the call this morning, as usual, the Catalyst webinar quiz will be going out along with the YouTube recording of Paul's presentation today. Please take the quiz. Feel free to refer to the YouTube recording as open book if you need. Return the finished quiz to Sharon Kerfman at headquarters, skurfman@pgahq.com. That's SCURFMAN at pgahq.com. A score of 70% or higher on the quiz will earn 1 MSR credit for attending today's Catalyst. Thank you very much, Mr. Levy. Thank you, everybody, for being on the call. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.